Most people laugh when they hear about aliens. They say it's madness, imagination, or just stories meant to scare children. I used to laugh too, until the night the light went out and the impossible became real. What I saw, what they showed me, changed everything I believed about the universe and about us. I never believed in aliens. Not really. I grew up like most people, reading books, watching sci-fi movies, scrolling through conspiracy theories late at night, and laughing at grainy videos of supposed UFO sighting. The idea that something so extraordinary, so impossible, could happen to someone like me seemed absurd. I was just an ordinary person living an ordinary life in a small apartment on the edge of the city, editing videos about UFO encounters for my YouTube channel. It was entertainment, nothing more. A hobby, a way to pass time and maybe make a few people smile or question reality for a moment. I never imagined that one day I would become part of a story so unbelievable that even I struggled to accept it as truth. It was late around 2:47 a.m., to be exact. I remember checking the clock moments before everything changed. The house was silent except for the faint hum of my computer fan and the occasional creak of the old building settling. The only light in the room came from my monitor, casting a cold blue glow across my desk as I reviewed footage for an upcoming video about alien abductions. I laughed to myself, shaking my head at how obviously fake some of the images looked. Poor CGI, blurry photos, dramatic music designed to manipulate emotion. Then, without warning, the light went out. Not just my computer, everything. The room plunged into complete, suffocating darkness. My first thought was logical. A blown fuse, a power outage, maybe a storm I hadn't noticed building outside. But as I sat there in the dark, something felt fundamentally wrong. The air itself seemed to change. It grew heavy, dense, almost electric, as if the atmosphere had become charged with invisible energy. My skin prickled, my chest tightened. A low, almost inaudible hum filled the silence, vibrating through the walls, the floor, my bones. I reached for my phone, dead, completely unresponsive, despite having been at 80% battery moments before. My computer, my lights, even the small LED clock on my nightstand, everything had shut off simultaneously, as if something had drained every electronic device in the room at once. Then the light appeared. It didn't come from outside. It wasn't a flashlight, a street lamp, or moonlight breaking through the window. It was as if the air itself began to glow a silver-blue luminescence that seemed to emanate from nowhere and everywhere at once. The light was alive, liquid, shifting, and pulsing like water made of pure illumination. It moved across the walls, the ceiling, wrapping around objects and bending shadows in ways that defied physics. My chest tightened further. I tried to stand, to move, to run, but my body wouldn't respond. My muscles locked. My breath caught in my throat. I was fully awake, fully conscious, fully aware of every sensation, yet utterly powerless to act. Panic surged through me, primal and overwhelming. I wanted to scream, but no sound came. A low ringing filled my ears, growing louder, deeper, resonating inside my skull. It wasn't painful, but it was all-consuming, drowning out thought, reason, everything. I felt a force not physical, not visible, pulling me upward, not lifting me, but bending reality itself around me, as if the world were folding inward and I was being drawn into the crease. Then everything went white. When I regained consciousness, I wasn't in my room. I was lying on a smooth surface, cold, slightly damp, impossibly seamless. It felt almost organic, like polished stone that breathed. Above me, a ceiling, if it could even be called, that pulsed gently, translucent and alive like liquid glass in constant motion. Light moved through it in waves, casting shifting patterns across the space. Shapes moved around me. At first they were blurry, undefined, but as my vision cleared, I saw them fully. They were tall, taller than any human, and impossibly slender. Their bodies seemed almost weightless, their movements fluid and graceful, like dancers moving through water. Their skin was translucent, shimmering faintly, reflecting light in mesmerizing, otherworldly ways. It was as if they were made of glass, energy, and starlight all at once. But it was their eyes that held me, immense, deep, endless pools of radiant light that seemed to see through me entirely, not just my body, but my thoughts, my memories, my very essence. There was no aggression in their gaze, no malice, but there was an intensity that pierced me to the core. I wanted to scream. I wanted to demand answers, to ask why me, what they wanted, where I was. But no words came. My voice was gone, swallowed by the overwhelming presence of these beings. Then a thought appeared in my mind, not spoken, not heard, but felt with undeniable clarity and power. Do not be afraid. You have been seen. The feeling that accompanied those words was unlike anything I had ever experienced. It was calm, profound, almost overwhelming in its intensity. It wasn't just reassurance, it was truth, undeniable and absolute. I could feel everything they felt: purpose, serenity, curiosity, and something else, something ancient and vast that I couldn't comprehend. The environment around me began to shift. The floor beneath me disappeared, or perhaps it simply ceased to exist in any way I could understand. I was floating, suspended in a void that stretched infinitely in every direction. Stars appeared, billions of them, swirling, bending, moving in impossible patterns, as if the universe itself were breathing, alive and aware. Then a massive sphere materialized before me, glowing with brilliant blue and white light. Earth, my home, but not the Earth I knew. The continents were recognizable, but something was wrong, terribly, devastatingly wrong. Cities burned. Massive fires consumed forests. Deserts expanded where green lands once thrived. Oceans surged over coastlines, swallowing entire nations. Storms, hurricanes, tornadoes, cyclones raged across the surface with terrifying ferocity. The atmosphere itself seemed to writhe, thick with smoke, ash, and darkness. I felt a despair so deep, so crushing, that I thought I might collapse. My chest ached. Tears burned my eyes. I wanted to look away, but I couldn't. The vision held me, forced me to witness every detail, every consequence. Then, something changed. Another vision appeared, overlaying the first like a transparent film. Light, pure, radiant, alive, flowed across the planet, connecting cities, people, and nature. It moved like golden veins threading through humanity, weaving together communities, ecosystems, and consciousness itself. Energy coursed through it, vibrant and powerful, as if the earth itself were healing, awakening, becoming something greater. One of the beings turned toward me, and in that gaze, I felt a message without words. These are possibilities, not certainties. Humanity can destroy itself, or it can awaken. The choice is yours. Time lost all meaning. I watched centuries pass in seconds. Cities crumbled and were rebuilt. Civilizations rose, fell, and rose again. Humans learned to coexist, not just with each other, but with the planet, with nature, with forces beyond comprehension. Their eyes reflected deeper consciousness. Their hearts opened, their actions aligned with awareness and empathy. But the darkness lingered. For every vision of hope, there was a shadow of destruction. For every act of creation, There was neglect, cruelty, and collapse. The duality was clear. Humanity's fate was never guaranteed. Every choice, every action, every decision had the power to shift the trajectory of existence itself. I saw humans working alongside beings from other worlds, building cities of light and energy. I saw forests regrowing in harmony with technology, oceans purifying themselves, consciousness expanding across generations. And yet I also saw war, greed, ignorance, and suffering threatening to undo all progress. The constant thread through it all was light guiding, connecting, teaching. The beings I had encountered were not conquerors or judges. They were mirrors, reflecting what humanity was capable of becoming and what it might yet achieve. Finally, the visions faded. I was back on the smooth surface, trembling, my breath ragged, my mind struggling to comprehend everything I had witnessed. The beings watched silently, their gaze heavy with expectation and understanding. They communicated without words. Remember what you have seen. Share it. Act with awareness. Then, abruptly, everything dissolved. I felt myself falling through layers of color, through sensations that defy description, until I woke once more in my own bed. The world had returned, but I was forever changed. When I woke again, I found myself back on that smooth, cold surface, but this time everything felt profoundly different. The world around me wasn't just a space, it was alive, breathing, pulsing with awareness that I could feel in every fiber of my being. The walls, if they could even be called walls, stretched and contracted like living tissue. They shimmered with colors that don't exist in our world, hues that my eyes struggled to process, that my brain couldn't name. The air itself hummed with a frequency I could feel vibrating through my chest, my bones, my very consciousness. The beings stood around me in a circle, tall and impossibly elegant. Their translucent forms caught and refracted light in ways that seemed to defy physics. It was as if they were made of crystal, water, and starlight all woven together. Their skin, if it could be called skin, shimmered constantly, patterns of light moving beneath the surface like thoughts made visible. Their eyes, those immense, radiant eyes, held a depth that terrified and mesmerized me simultaneously. Looking into them was like staring into the heart of a star, into the fabric of space itself. There was intelligence there, ancient, vast, incomprehensible, but also something gentler, curiosity, compassion, perhaps even a kind of love that transcended anything humans could understand. I wanted desperately to speak, to ask the questions burning in my mind. Why me? What do you want? Where am I? How is any of this possible? But every time I tried to form words, they dissolved before reaching my lips. My voice had been replaced by something else, a direct transmission of thought and feeling that bypassed language entirely. Then a sensation washed over me like warm water, understanding, profound and complete. Their presence wasn't threatening. It was purposeful, intentional, and undeniably significant. A thought entered my mind, bypassing my ears entirely, settling directly into my consciousness with absolute clarity. You are ready to see. You are ready to understand. You have always been ready. You simply forgot. I realized then that I could feel their thoughts, not as words or sentences, but as pure information, emotions, images, concepts, and truths that unfolded directly into my awareness like flowers blooming and fast forward. It was overwhelming, exhilarating, and terrifying all at once. The room, or whatever this impossible space truly was, began to dissolve around me. The walls faded first, becoming transparent, then disappearing entirely. The floor beneath me seemed to fall away, yet I didn't fall. I simply existed, suspended in a void that was somehow fuller than any physical space I'd ever known. Stars appeared not the distant pinpricks we see from Earth, but massive burning spheres of light and energy. They stretched and swirled around me in patterns that shouldn't exist, galaxies twisting in impossible spirals, nebulae breathing like living organisms. I could feel their heat, their gravity, their immense age pressing against my consciousness. Time itself seemed to bend and fold. I could sense centuries passing in heartbeats, civilizations rising and falling in the space between breaths. The universe wasn't just vast, it was alive, aware, interconnected in ways that shattered every assumption I'd ever held about reality. Then I saw it again, Earth. It appeared before me, suspended in the cosmic void, glowing with that familiar blue and white light. But as I watched, the image began to change, to fracture. Multiple versions of Earth overlaid each other like transparent film, each showing a different possibility, a different future. In one version, flames consumed entire continents. Cities that I recognized, New York, Tokyo, London, Mumbai, crumbled under the weight of floods, earthquakes, and storms. The oceans rose, swallowing coastlines, erasing islands, drowning civilization. Forests burned until nothing remained but ash and dust. The atmosphere itself seemed to darken, choking with smoke and pollution until the blue planet turned gray, then brown, then nearly black. I felt the weight of billions of lives lost, the crushing despair of a species watching its own extinction unfold. The emotion was so intense that I wanted to scream, to look away, to deny what I was seeing. But I couldn't. The vision held me captive, forcing me to witness every detail of our potential destruction. But then, just as the despair became unbearable, light appeared. It started as small sparks, tiny pinpricks of golden radiance emerging from the darkness. Then those sparks began to connect, forming threads, then networks, then vast webs of light that spread across the entire planet like golden veins pulsing with life. I saw people, humans, reaching out to each other across divides that had once seemed insurmountable. Communities forming in the aftermath of disaster, not with violence or desperation, but with cooperation, compassion, and remarkable resilience. Knowledge spreading like wildfire, not through force or control, but through genuine connection and shared understanding. The light moved through humanity, like electricity through circuits, connecting us all not physically, but consciously, emotionally, spiritually. I could feel it. Millions of individual choices, small acts of courage and kindness, combining into a force powerful enough to reshape the world. I saw cities being rebuilt, but different this time. They weren't monuments to ego or power. They were living systems, harmonious extensions of the natural world. Buildings that breathed, that generated energy from sunlight and wind, that recycled everything, wasted nothing. Technology and nature weren't at war anymore. They had become partners, collaborators in a shared vision of sustainable existence. Forests regrew. Oceans began to heal, their waters clearing, their ecosystems recovering. The atmosphere brightened, and through it all, that golden light continued to spread, connecting everything, people to nature, Earth to the cosmos itself. One of the beings moved closer to me. I could feel its presence like warmth against my skin, like a hand gently touching my consciousness. Its thoughts pressed into my mind, not as words, but as pure understanding. This is not your end. It is a choice. The future is not fixed. It is fluid, shaped by intention, action, and awareness. Every moment offers the possibility of transformation. I realized then, with stunning clarity, that what I was witnessing weren't predictions, they were possibilities. Multiple futures branching from every decision we make, every choice we face, every action we take or fail to take. The universe wasn't showing me what will happen. It was showing me what could happen, depending on the path humanity chooses. Images continued to race past me, each one more vivid and detailed than the last. I saw a child planting a seed that would grow into a forest. I saw a scientist making a breakthrough that would revolutionize clean energy. I saw a politician choosing truth over political gain, inspiring millions to demand better leadership. I saw an artist creating work that awakened consciousness in viewers, spreading awareness like ripples in water. But I also saw the opposite, a CEO choosing profit over people, poisoning ecosystems for quarterly gain. I saw leaders spreading lies that led nations to war. I saw apathy, indifference, the numbing comfort of ignorance, allowing atrocities to unfold unchallenged. Every small act of kindness or cruelty could ripple outward, affecting thousands, millions, even billions of lives across time. A single conversation could change someone's perspective, which could change their action, which could influence their community, which could shift the trajectory of entire societies. The beings wanted me to understand something fundamental. We are not powerless. Individual choices matter not in some abstract, philosophical way, but in concrete, measurable ways that shape the physical reality of our world and the consciousness of our species. I felt a connection then to all of it, to Earth, to every person on it, to the animals, the plants, the oceans, the very air we breathe. I understood, deeply and completely, that we are not separate from our planet, from each other, or from the universe. Every thought, every emotion, every decision reverberates outward, affecting the vast tapestry of existence itself. We are threads in that tapestry, individual, yes, but inextricably woven together. Pull one thread and the entire pattern shifts. Cut too many threads and the whole thing unravels. But strengthen the threads, weave them with intention and care, and the tapestry becomes more beautiful, more resilient, more magnificent than we ever imagined possible. Time continued to lose all meaning. I watched centuries pass in what felt like seconds, yet somehow I experienced every moment with perfect clarity. I witnessed entire civilizations rise from primitive beginnings to heights of technological and spiritual advancement that would seem like magic to us now. I saw humans learning to communicate telepathically, thoughts flowing between minds as easily as words flow between mouths. I saw them manipulating matter at the quantum level, shaping reality itself through focused consciousness. I saw them traveling not just to other planets, but to other dimensions, other states of existence entirely. But advancement wasn't linear. Progress wasn't guaranteed. For every leap forward, there were stumbles backward. Civilizations that reached incredible heights sometimes fell into darkness, destroyed by arrogance, greed, fear, or simply forgetting the fundamental truths that had allowed them to rise in the first place. Yet through it all, one constant remained, the presence of light. It was always there, sometimes bright and overwhelming, sometimes reduced to the faintest spark, but never completely extinguished. That light was consciousness, its self-awareness, compassion, the fundamental recognition that all life is interconnected and sacred. The beings I had encountered were part of that light. Not its source, nothing so simple, but rather its carriers, its protectors, its witnesses. They moved through the cosmos, not as conquerors or colonizers, but as guides, watchers, reminders of what's possible when consciousness evolves beyond fear and separation. They had watched Earth for millennia. I realized they had seen humanity's potential from the very beginning. not just our capacity for destruction, but our remarkable ability to create, to love, to transcend our limitation. They had witnessed our darkest moments and our brightest triumph, never interfering directly, but always present, always watching, always hoping. The visions began to slow, to focus, to crystallize into something more specific and personal. I saw myself not as I was, but as I could be. I saw the choices ahead of me, the moments where my decisions would matter, where my actions would ripple outward in ways I couldn't predict or control. I saw the responsibility that comes with awareness, the weight of knowing what most people don't. The beings communicated their final message, and this time it came through with perfect clarity. You have been shown this not because you are special, but because you are ready. Thousands of others are being shown similar truths in ways they can understand. Humanity is awakening slowly, unevenly, but undeniably. The collective consciousness is shifting. The question is not whether change will come, but what kind of change it will be. You cannot carry this knowledge alone, nor should you try. Share what you have seen in whatever way feels true to you. Some will dismiss you, some will mock you, but some, the ones who are ready, will recognize the truth in your words. They will feel the resonance of what you describe, because they too are awakening. Remember, the future is not fixed. Every moment offers choice. Every choice creates ripples. Every ripple shapes the world. Act with awareness. Choose with intention. Live with compassion. That is the message. That is the path. That is the way forward. Then, once again, everything began to dissolve. The stars faded first, their brilliant light dimming and disappearing, like candles being extinguished one by one. The visions of earth, both the destruction and the hope, dissolved like mist in morning sunlight. The beings themselves became transparent, their forms fading until they were nothing more than impressions of light. Then suggestions of presence, then memory. I felt myself falling again, but this time it was different. Not terrifying, but gentle, like drifting on calm water. I moved through layers of color that I cannot name, through sensations that language cannot capture, through states of consciousness that human experience rarely touches. Time stretched and compressed. I might have fallen for seconds or for centuries. There was no way to tell. All I knew was the feeling of returning, of being drawn back to something familiar, something solid, something real in the way that physical reality is real. When I finally woke, I was in my own bed, in my own room, in my own life, but I was not the same person who had left it. The first thing I noticed was the silence, not the absence of sound. There were still noises, normal everyday sounds of traffic outside, neighbors moving in adjacent apartments, the hum of electronics. But beneath all that, there was a silence, a stillness, a sense of profound quiet that I had never noticed before. Or perhaps I had noticed it once when I was very young, before the noise of modern life drowned it out. That deep, fundamental silence that exists beneath all the chaos and distraction, the silence of existence itself, patient and eternal. I sat up slowly, my body feeling strange, as if I'd been away for years rather than hours. Sunlight streamed through my window, normal and mundane and somehow miraculous. I looked at my hands, turning them over, amazed that they were still there, still solid, still mine. Everything seemed different now. Colors were sharper, more vibrant, as if someone had turned up the saturation on reality itself. Shadows held depth I'd never noticed. Sounds carried subtle undertones and harmonics that I'd been deaf to before. Even the air felt different against my skin, alive, aware, full of invisible currents of energy. But the most profound change was internal. I could feel emotions radiating from everything around me. not in some vague metaphorical sense, but as actual sensations, tiny waves of feeling emanating from people, from animals, even from plants and objects. It was overwhelming at first, like suddenly being able to hear 1,000 conversations at once. The neighbor upstairs, I could feel her anxiety about paying bills, her worry about her aging mother, her small spark of hope about a job interview next week. The dog being walked on the street below, its simple joy at being outside, its unconditional love for its owner, its moment of fear when a car passed too close. Even the potted plant on my windowsill seemed to emanate something, not emotion exactly, but a kind of presence, an awareness of sunlight and water, a slow, patient existence that stretched through seasons and years. I didn't know if this sensitivity was real, or if the experience had somehow broken my mind, blurring the line between imagination and perception. But it felt real. It felt true in a way that couldn't be dismissed or explained away. Sleep became both refuge and torture. Every time I closed my eyes, I was pulled back into visions. Not the same visions exactly, but variations, extensions, deeper explorations of what I'd been shown. The earth appeared again and again, torn apart by storms, fires, floods, and human conflict, yet always interwoven through the destruction. Those threads of light persisted, connecting, healing, guiding, refusing to be extinguished. The mark on my arm, the one I'd discovered the morning after my first experience, burned faintly during these dreams. It wasn't painful exactly, more like a warm pressure, a constant reminder that the experience hadn't ended. It was a permanent connection, a tether to something beyond myself that I could neither ignore nor escape. I began to hear their presence again, though not with my ears. Thoughts, feelings, impressions transmitted directly into my consciousness, bypassing all physical senses. They came at unexpected moments while I was making coffee, walking to the store, sitting in traffic. Quiet nudges of awareness, reminders, gentle corrections when my thoughts strayed into despair or cynicism. You are seeing what others will not. The future is shifting. The choice is yours. Do not carry this alone. Share what you know. Find the others who are awakening. Remember, every action creates ripples. Make yours count. I tried to explain what had happened to people I trusted, friends, family, a therapist I'd started seeing when the anxiety became unbearable. But how could I describe being lifted beyond the sky, witnessing multiple possible futures, feeling the presence of beings that existed beyond comprehension? Most reacted with disbelief, their faces carefully neutral, their voices gentle, with the kind of concern reserved for the mentally unwell. Some suggested medication. Others suggested rest, a vacation, maybe cutting back on the UFO research. A few simply stopped returning my calls. I learned quickly that this knowledge was mine alone to carry. Trying to force others to believe, trying to convince people who weren't ready, only led to frustration, isolation, and doubt. I withdrew, not out of shame, but out of necessity. The burden was too heavy to share with those who couldn't or wouldn't understand. As days turned into weeks, I started noticing patterns everywhere. Everything seemed to have a hidden rhythm, a subtle structure beneath the apparent chaos of daily life. The way people moved through crowds, the layout of cities, the recurrence of certain numbers and geometric shapes in architecture, advertising, even in nature itself. License plates, phone numbers, timestamps 1111, 333, 555 appeared with impossible frequency. I'd dismissed such things as coincidence before, but now I wondered if they were signals, breadcrumbs left by the universe itself, reminders that there's more happening than our limited perception can grasp. I began keeping a journal, documenting everything, the visions, the patterns, the synchronicities, the strange moments when reality seemed to thin, and I could almost see through it to something else beneath. Pages filled with sketches of symbols I'd seen, notes about emotional patterns I'd observed, questions that had no answers but demanded to be asked anyway. The visions continued to teach me, to show me connections I'd never imagined. I saw how human emotions create fields of energy that influence physical reality. I saw how collective belief shapes the world more profoundly than any physical force. I saw how consciousness itself is the fundamental building block of existence, more real and more powerful than matter, energy, or time. Most importantly, I saw humans working alongside other beings and futures yet to come, cities built with light and living energy, where technology and nature weren't separate but integrated, forests regrowing in harmony with advanced civilization, oceans purifying themselves through conscious collaboration between humans and the planet's own awareness. These weren't fantasies or wishful thinking. They were possibilities, potential futures that existed as real as any timeline, waiting for the right choices to bring them into manifestation. But alongside these visions of wonder, the shadows remained. I saw the other paths too, the ones we might take if we continued down our current road. I saw cities drowning under rising seas, billions of climate refugees fleeing north as equatorial regions became uninhabitable. I saw wars over water, over arable land, over the last remaining resources of a dying planet. I saw technology turning against us not through malicious AI, but through our own weaponization of innovation, our inability to balance power with wisdom. I saw humanity fracturing further, dividing into isolated groups defined by fear, tribalism, and the desperate scramble for survival. I saw consciousness contracting, awareness shrinking, the light of awareness dimming, as people retreated into smaller and smaller circles of concern, caring only for their own survival, their own family, their own tribe. In these shadow futures, the beings I'd encountered were absent, not because they'd abandoned us, but because there was nothing left to guide, nothing left to protect. In choosing fear and separation, humanity would have chosen to disconnect from the greater cosmic consciousness, to cut ourselves off from the light that had always been there, always waiting, always offering connection. These visions were harder to bear than the catastrophic one. Physical destruction was terrible, yes, but it was honest in its finality. But this spiritual death, this slow contraction of consciousness into darkness and isolation, that was a different kind of ending. Perhaps worse because it meant losing not just our lives, but our very humanity, our potential, our purpose. I began to feel a profound sense of responsibility pressing down on me, like physical weight. I wasn't a passive observer anymore. I couldn't be. The visions had made that clear. Every choice I made, every action I took or didn't take rippled outward in ways I couldn't fully predict or control. My words, my thoughts, even my emotions contributed to the collective field of human consciousness that was even now shaping which future would manifest. The burden felt almost unbearable at times. How could one person's choices matter in a world of 8 billion people? How could my small actions shift the trajectory of an entire species, an entire planet? But the beings had shown me the answer, because every single person matters. Every single choice creates ripples. Enough ripples in the same direction create waves. Enough waves create currents. And currents can reshape entire oceans. I wasn't responsible for saving the world alone, no one was. But I was responsible for my own corner of it, for the ripples I created, for the energy I put out into the collective field. That was my role, my purpose, my contribution to whatever future we would ultimately create. Around this time, something unexpected began to happen. Other people started reaching out to me, at first through comments on my YouTube channel, then through emails, then through chance encounters that felt anything but random. People who had experienced their own strange awakenings, flashes of light in the night sky, unexplainable vibrations felt in meditation, vivid dreams that felt more real than waking life. They described seeing beings similar to what I'd encountered. They spoke of receiving messages about humanity's future, about choice and consciousness, and the critical moment we're living through. They shared symbols they'd seen, and some of those symbols matched what I'd sketched in my journal. I realized I wasn't alone. The beings had been honest. Thousands of others were being contacted, awakened, prepared. We were scattered across the globe, different cultures and languages and background, but we shared this common experience of being shown something profound, being entrusted with knowledge, being asked to act with awareness. We began connecting online, forming small groups to share experiences and support each other. Some called it a contactee network. Others preferred awakening community or simply the others. The labels didn't matter. What mattered was the sense of validation, the relief of finding people who understood, who believed, who carried the same burden and the same hope. Together, we documented our experiences, comparing notes, looking for patterns. What we found was remarkable. Despite different circumstances and different beings, the core message was always the same. Humanity is at a crossroads. The future is not fixed. Choice matters. Consciousness is expanding. Awakening is happening. Light is spreading. Hope remains. As months passed, I began noticing changes in the world at large, subtle at first, then more obvious. Electronics flickered unexplainably more often. Lights in the night sky moved in patterns that defied explanation. Weather became increasingly erratic, but not just warming, weird, unpredictable, as if the planet's climate system was going through some kind of transformation. Reports of strange phenomena increased. Crop circles with mathematical precision, animal migrations with no clear cause, people having collective dreams about similar symbols and messages. Governments continued to dismiss these events as natural anomalies or hoaxes, but those of us who had been contacted knew better. The lattice of light I'd seen in my visions, that network of consciousness, connecting awakened humans, was beginning to manifest in physical reality. Not literally, perhaps, but the effects were visible. Synchronized movements among people who'd never met. Ideas emerging simultaneously in different parts of the world. Solutions to problems appearing as if downloaded from some collective intelligence. Blackouts struck entire regions, lasting longer than any technical failure should. During these periods of darkness, people reported seeing geometric patterns in the sky. Not ships, exactly, but forms of light, structures of energy that pulsed and shifted before fading away. The beings were making themselves known slowly, carefully, preparing humanity for contact on a larger scale. But they were doing it gradually, giving us time to adjust, to awaken, to prepare consciousness for the shock of confirmed alien presence. Time seemed to move differently after that. Not faster or slower exactly, but more fluid, as if the rigid structure of past, present, future was softening, becoming permeable. I found myself experiencing moments out of sequence, remembering things that hadn't happened yet, recognizing places I'd never been, finishing strangers' sentences with thoughts they hadn't yet spoken. The visions intensified, coming not just in sleep, but in waking moments too. I'd be walking down the street and suddenly see two realities overlaid. the present moment and a possible future, both equally real, both existing simultaneously. I learned to navigate this doubled perception, to hold both timelines in my awareness without losing my grip on the here and now. The mark on my arm began to change. What had been a simple geometric pattern, 3 lines crossing a circle, began to elaborate. New details emerging like a photograph, slowly developing. Tiny symbols appeared within the lines, almost too small to see, but definitely there, pulsing faintly with their own light. I researched obsessively, trying to find meaning in ancient texts, sacred geometry, mathematical constants, and I found echoes, fragments of this same symbol in Sumerian tablets, Egyptian hieroglyphs, crop circles, even in the structure of DNA and the geometry of flowers. It was as if the pattern had always been there, woven into the fabric of reality itself, waiting to be recognized. Other contactees reported similar changes to their marks. We compared photographs, traced the patterns, tried to decode the message. Slowly a picture emerged. These weren't just identifications or tags. They were keys, activation codes, dormant programs embedded in our consciousness that were gradually coming online. We were being upgraded, prepared for something. But what? The global phenomena continued to escalate. Mass sightings became common, hundreds of people witnessing the same lights, the same shapes, the same impossible movements across the sky. Video footage proliferated online, too numerous and too consistent to dismiss as hoaxes. Governments could no longer maintain the pretense of ignorance. Official statements became increasingly vague and contradictory, eroding public trust. But something else was happening too, something perhaps more significant than the external phenomena. People were changing. Not everyone, maybe not even most people, but enough to create a noticeable shift in the collective consciousness. Empathy seemed to be increasing. Strangers helped each other more spontaneously. Communities formed around mutual aid rather than mutual fear. Old divisions, political, religious, national, began to feel less important to those who were awakening. It wasn't utopia, far from it. The shadow forces remained strong. Greed, fear, tribalism, the momentum of destructive systems that had been centuries in the making. But the light was growing too, spreading through human consciousness like mycelium through soil, invisible but undeniable, connecting, networking, preparing for something. I felt it in my own life. Synchronicities multiplied. Meaningful coincidences became the norm rather than the exception. The right people appeared at the right time. Resources manifested when needed. Obstacles dissolved in unexpected ways. It was as if the universe itself was conspiring to support those who had chosen awareness, who had committed to being part of the solution rather than the problem. The being's presence became more constant, less intrusive but always there, a background hum of consciousness, a gentle pressure reminding me to stay awake, stay aware, stay connected to the larger purpose. But this gift came with cost that I hadn't anticipated. Relationships strained and sometimes broke. Friends who couldn't or wouldn't understand drifted away, unable to relate to the person I'd become. Family members worried about my mental health, suggested interventions, pulled back when I refused to pretend everything was normal. I lost my job. My productivity had suffered. My focus divided between the mundane demands of work and the profound experiences happening in other dimensions of consciousness. My employer was kind but firm. I needed to take care of myself, they said. What they meant was, you're not functioning in consensus reality anymore. Money became tight. Bills piled up. Practical concerns pressed in, threatening to drown out the cosmic perspective I'd gained. There were days when I wondered if madness would be easier. Just let go. Stop trying to integrate these impossible experiences. retreat into whatever comfortable delusion society offered. But I couldn't unknow what I knew, couldn't unsee what I'd seen. The visions, the beings, the multiple futures, they were more real to me than bills and jobs and the comfortable lies that hold society together. I had touched something true, something fundamental, and I couldn't go back to pretending. The isolation was perhaps the hardest part, carrying knowledge that most people not only don't believe but actively ridicule, seeing patterns and connections that others dismiss as paranoia or magical thinking, living between worlds, 1 foot in consensus reality where bills need to be paid and social norms must be observed, the other in expanded consciousness where time is fluid and beings from other dimensions offer guidance. I developed coping strategies. Meditation became essential, grounding me when the visions threatened to overwhelm. Nature helped too. Trees and rivers and mountains didn't judge or disbelieve. They simply existed, patient and eternal, reminding me that reality is bigger than human opinion. And I had the other contactees, the small community of people who understood, because they too had been touched by something beyond explanation. We supported each other through the difficulties, shared strategies for integration, reminded each other that we weren't crazy, the world was waking up, and we were simply among the first to open our eyes. Then, approximately 9 months after my initial experience, something extraordinary happened. It started with the blackout, not localized this time, but global, a cascade of power failures that swept across continents in a wave pattern that seemed almost intentional. Satellites failed. Communications networks went dark. For 72 hours, modern civilization held its breath, teetering on the edge of panic. But during that darkness, something else emerged. People around the world reported the same experience, seeing patterns of light in the sky, geometric forms that pulsed with intelligence and purpose. Not ships, not craft, but something else, manifestations of consciousness itself, thought made visible, awareness taking form in the physical realm. And they communicated, not with words, not with sound, but with direct transmission of feeling and knowing. Millions of people, perhaps billions, received the same message simultaneously. The time of choosing has arrived. Humanity stands at the threshold. Fear will lead to destruction. Love will lead to transformation. The power has always been yours. The choice has always been yours. We have only come to remind you of what you already are. When power returned 72 hours later, the world had changed. Not physically, the same buildings stood, the same mountains rose, the same oceans flowed, but something fundamental had shifted in human consciousness. The veil had thinned enough that even those who had been asleep could no longer deny that something was happening, something unprecedented and profound. Social media exploded with testimonials, videos, artwork depicting what people had experienced. Scientists scrambled for explanations. Governments issued contradictory statements. Religious leaders struggled to contextualize the event within their existing frameworks. But for those of us who had been contacted earlier, the message was clear. The preparation phase was ending. The real work was beginning. In the weeks and months that followed, humanity began to organize its response. Some retreated further into fear, building bunkers, stockpiling weapons, convinced that the beings represented a threat to be defended against. Conspiracy theories proliferated. The beings were demons, were government holograms, were preparing an invasion. Fear creates its own reality, and those who chose fear began to experience increasingly fearful phenomena. But others, growing numbers of others, chose differently. They chose curiosity over fear, connection over isolation, cooperation over competition. They formed communities, based on the principles the beings had shared: awareness, compassion, sustainable living, collective responsibility. Technology began to shift in unexpected directions. Scientists who had experienced the contact found themselves suddenly understanding principles they'd struggled with for years. Clean energy solutions emerged from research labs with remarkable speed. Medical breakthroughs accelerated. Agricultural methods that healed soil while feeding people spread from experimental farms to mainstream adoption. It wasn't magic. It was consciousness, human consciousness, connecting with the larger field of awareness that permeates the universe, accessing information and inspiration that had always been available, but which we'd been too disconnected to perceive. The beings had said they weren't here to save us, and they meant it. They offered no technology, no solutions, no rescue. What they offered was a mirror, showing us our own potential, our own power, our own choices, and their consequences. I watched the light spread, the same golden threads I'd seen in my visions, now manifesting in reality, as networks of awakened humans choosing differently, acting differently, creating differently. Each person who woke up added their light to the network, making it stronger, brighter, more resilient. But the darkness grew too. For every person who chose awareness, another doubled down on fear. For every community that formed around connection, another fortified itself around exclusion. The duality I'd been shown wasn't resolved. It was intensifying, polarizing, forcing humanity to choose which timeline we would collectively create. There were setbacks, dark moments, times when destruction seemed inevitable. Wars erupted as old powers struggled to maintain control in the face of dissolving paradigm. Economic systems cracked under the weight of their own contradictions. Climate catastrophes accelerated, each disaster more severe than the last. Disease outbreaks tested our capacity for compassion versus our tendency toward tribalism. I saw the shadow futures I'd been shown beginning to manifest in certain regions, certain timelines, places where fear won, where separation triumphed, where the light was actively rejected and suppressed. These areas became increasingly dystopian, authoritarian, violent, disconnected from nature and from each other. It was painful to witness, knowing that different choices could have led to different outcomes. But the beings had been clear. Free will is absolute. Some would choose darkness, and that choice had to be honored, even as we worked to create light elsewhere. The world was fragmenting into parallel realities based on collective consciousness. Not literally separate universes, but experiential realities so different that people living in them could barely communicate with each other anymore. Those who had chosen fear lived in a world of increasing threat and scarcity. Those who had chosen awareness lived in a world of increasing possibility and abundance. Both realities existed simultaneously, overlapping geographically but diverging experientially, and the gap between them widened every day. Through all of this, my own path became clearer. I wasn't meant to be a leader or a prophet. I wasn't meant to convince or convert anyone. My role, the role the beings had prepared me for, was simpler and perhaps more difficult: to witness, to document, to share my experience honestly without attachment to whether people believed me. I returned to my YouTube channel with new purpose. Instead of analyzing other people's UFO footage, I shared my own story, not sensationalized, not dramatized, just honest testimony about what I had experienced and what I continued to experience. The response was mixed, as I'd expected. Some people mocked, some dismissed, some attacked with surprising venom, but others, the ones who were ready, resonated with what I shared. They recognized the truth in my words because they were experiencing similar awakenings themselves. My channel became a gathering place for contactees, for seekers, for those who sensed that humanity was going through something unprecedented and wanted to understand it. We shared experiences, supported each other, created a community based on the principles the beings had taught: awareness, compassion, connection. I learned to let go of the need for everyone to believe me, to understand me, to validate my experience. My truth was my truth, regardless of whether others accepted it. And paradoxically, the less I needed people to believe me, the more credible I became to those who were ready to listen. The mark on my arm continued to evolve, the pattern becoming increasingly complex and beautiful. I no longer tried to hide it. It was a badge of honor, a symbol of connection, a reminder of the responsibility I carried. The visions continued, but they changed character over time. Instead of showing me possible futures in broad sweeps, they became more specific, more personal. I began to see the consequences of individual choices, not just my own, but those of people around me, people I'd never met. Decisions that would ripple forward through time in ways both beautiful and terrible. I saw a woman deciding whether to speak up at a city council meeting about environmental policy. In one timeline, she stayed silent, and the policy passed, leading to decades of environmental degradation. In another timeline, she spoke, inspired others to join her, and the policy was defeated, preserving natural spaces that would become crucial refuges during later climate disruptions. I saw a teacher deciding how to respond to a struggling student. In one timeline, he dismissed the student's difficulties as laziness, reinforcing the student's sense of inadequacy, leading to a lifetime of diminished potential. In another timeline, he took extra time to understand the student's learning style, unlocking abilities that led the student to become a scientist who made crucial discoveries about carbon sequestration. These weren't hypothetical. They were real choices happening in real time, and I could see how profoundly they mattered. Every seemingly small decision created branches in the timeline, paths that diverged toward light or shadow, connection or separation, life or death. The beings wanted all of us who had been contacted to understand this. There are no insignificant choices. Every moment matters. Every action creates ripples. Every person is powerful beyond their comprehension. But perhaps the most profound vision came near the end of my second year of contact. I was meditating in a park, sitting beneath an old oak tree, when suddenly my awareness expanded beyond my body, beyond human consciousness, merging with something vast and ancient and profoundly alive. I became the earth. Not metaphorically, I actually experienced what it feels like to be a planet, a living conscious being on a scale impossible to describe in human terms. I felt billions of years of existence compressed into a single eternal moment. I felt the formation of mountains, the movement of continents, the rise and fall of countless species. And I felt humanity felt us as cells in a larger organism, as neurons in a planetary brain that was in the process of waking up. Our individual consciousnesses were threads in a vast tapestry, and the tapestry itself was alive, aware, evolving. The earth wasn't separate from us. We were part of it, expressions of its consciousness, aspects of its awareness, exploring itself through billions of individual perspectives. When we hurt the planet, we were hurting ourselves. When we healed it, we were healing ourselves. There was no separation, never had been, except in our limited perception. And the earth was trying to communicate with us, had been trying for millennia, sending signals through dreams, through intuition, through the natural world itself. But we had forgotten how to listen, forgotten the language of consciousness, that transcends words. The beings I had encountered, they understood this language perfectly. They existed in constant communion with the consciousness of their own worlds and with a larger cosmic awareness that connects all things. They had come to Earth not to save us, but to help us remember what we had forgotten, that we too were part of this vast network of consciousness, and that we could learn to communicate with it again if we chose to. I came out of that meditation forever changed again. Every experience seemed to deepen the transformation, layer upon layer of awakening that never ended, only deepened. I understood then that there was no final destination, no moment when I would be fully awakened and the process would be complete. Consciousness evolution is infinite, endless, always expanding into greater and greater awareness. But I also understood that humanity was approaching a critical threshold, what the beings called a choice point, a moment in our collective evolution where our decisions would determine not just the fate of human civilization, but the fate of Earth itself as a conscious being. If we continued on our current path, prioritizing short-term gain over long-term sustainability, division over connection, fear over love, we would trigger a cascade of ecological collapse that would radically reduce Earth's capacity to support complex life. Human civilization, as we know it, would end, along with countless other species. But this wouldn't be the end of Earth. The planet would survive, would heal, would eventually give rise to new forms of consciousness over millions of years. From the planet's perspective, this was just one cycle among countless others, significant but not catastrophic. However, if we chose differently, if enough humans woke up, connected, acted with awareness and compassion, we could navigate through this crisis and emerge transformed, not just surviving, but evolving into something new, a conscious, mature species capable of partnership with our planet and with other conscious beings throughout the cosmos. This was the choice the beings kept showing me: extinction or transformation, collapse or evolution, the end of one chapter or the beginning of another entirely. And the decision point was now, not someday in the distant future, but in this decade, these years, these months. Every choice each of us made was contributing to the collective decision of which path humanity would take. Learning to live with expanded consciousness while maintaining function in ordinary reality became its own kind of art. I developed routines, practices, boundaries, meditation in the morning to ground myself before engaging with the world, regular time and nature to maintain connection with Earth's consciousness, periods of digital detox to prevent the noise of modern life from drowning out subtler signals. I learned to toggle between different modes of awareness, expanding into cosmic consciousness when appropriate, contracting into practical focus when necessary. The key was flexibility, not getting stuck in either extreme. Too much expansion, and I couldn't pay bills or maintain relationships. Too much contraction, and I lost touch with the guidance and perspective the beings offered. Other contactees and I shared techniques, compared notes, developed a kind of informal manual for integrating extraordinary experiences into ordinary life. We joked that we needed a support group, Contactees Anonymous, but we were only half joking. The challenges were real, and having community made them bearable. I rebuilt my life around this new reality, found work that allowed flexibility and didn't require pretending to be someone I wasn't, cultivated relationships with people who could accept my experiences even if they didn't share them, created art, writing, videos, music that expressed what I'd learned in ways that might reach those who were ready. The mark on my arm stopped changing, settling into a final pattern that felt complete. I had it tattooed over in the exact same design, making it permanent even if the original light-based version faded. It was my declaration. This happened, this is real, I am forever changed, and I'm not hiding it. The community of contactees continued to expand, reaching critical mass around the world. We estimated that millions of people had now experienced some form of contact, not all as dramatic as mine, but all significant, all transformative. Some had been contacted in dreams, some through meditation, some through direct physical encounters. The methods varied, but the message remained consistent. Humanity is waking up, the choice is approaching. Every person matters, light is spreading, hope remains. We organized conferences, created online platforms, published books and documentaries, not to convince skeptics that was a waste of energy, but to provide resources for those who were experiencing similar awakenings and needed guidance, validation, community. Slowly, the narrative began to shift in mainstream culture. What had been fringe became less so. Respected scientists began acknowledging that consciousness might be more fundamental than matter. Prestigious institutions started studying phenomena they'd previously dismissed. Even governments, grudgingly, began to admit that something unprecedented was happening that they couldn't fully explain or control. The veil was thinning. The boundary between normal reality and expanded consciousness was becoming more permeable. More people were having spontaneous mystical experiences, seeing through the illusion of separation, recognizing the interconnectedness of all things. It was slow, frustratingly slow from the perspective of those of us who had already awakened and could see how urgent the situation was. But it was happening. The light was spreading. The network was growing. The collective consciousness was shifting. But the journey wasn't without profound losses. My mother passed away during this time, never fully understanding or accepting what had happened to me. Her death was natural, expected given her age and health, but it carried extra weight because of our unreconciled distance. She died thinking I'd lost my mind, and I couldn't give her the comfort of pretending otherwise. At her funeral, I felt the being's presence more strongly than ever. They didn't offer platitudes or false comfort, but they did offer perspective. Death isn't ending, only transformation. Consciousness doesn't cease, it changes form. My mother's awareness had simply transitioned to a different state of existence. I didn't know if this was true or just comforting belief, but I felt something, a sense of her presence, freed from the limitations of her aging body and fearful mind, finally able to understand what I had been trying to tell her. It might have been wishful thinking, or it might have been real. The line between those categories had become too blurred for me to distinguish anymore. Other relationships ended, too, a romantic partnership that couldn't survive the intensity of my transformation. Friendships that faded when I could no longer pretend to care about trivial concerns. Professional connections severed when I refused to minimize my experiences for the comfort of others. Each loss hurt. Each represented a price paid for staying true to what I'd seen and learned. But I also recognized that these weren't really losses, they were completions, natural endings of connections that had served their purpose and needed to dissolve so new ones could form. New people entered my life, fellow contactees, spiritual teachers, artists and scientists working at the intersection of consciousness and reality. These new relationships were deeper, more authentic, based on shared understanding rather than social convention, quality over quantity, truth over comfort. Then, 3 years after my initial contact, I received what felt like a final vision, a culmination and synthesis of everything I'd been shown. I was meditating, not expecting anything particular, when suddenly I found myself back in that impossible space. the chamber where I had first encountered the beings. But this time it wasn't just visual. I was actually there, fully embodied, as real as any physical location I'd ever visited. The beings stood in a circle around me, more numerous than before, representing different species, different civilizations, different expressions of consciousness from across the galaxy and beyond. Their presence was overwhelming ancient wisdom, profound compassion, patient observation, spanning millennia. And they showed me the culmination. I saw Earth not as it is now, but as it could become, a planet fully awakened, its human population living in conscious partnership with the biosphere, with each other, with other species, both terrestrial and extraterrestrial. Cities that were living organisms themselves, technology indistinguishable from nature, consciousness woven through everything. I saw humans who had developed abilities we currently consider impossible: telepathy, telekinesis, conscious control of matter and energy, the ability to heal with intention, to create with thought, to travel beyond physical form, not through external technology, but through the evolution of consciousness itself. I saw Earth taking its place in a vast cosmic community, a network of conscious civilizations that had learned to transcend fear, scarcity, and separation. Not a homogeneous collective, but a diverse ecosystem of consciousness, each world unique, but all connected through the fundamental recognition of unity. This was the potential the beings saw in humanity, not what we are now, but what we could become if we made the right choices, if enough of us woke up, if we learned to work together instead of against each other, if we remembered our connection to the Earth and to the cosmos. But they also showed me the alternative, the timeline where we failed to wake up in time, where the ecological collapse accelerated beyond the point of recovery, where human civilization fragmented into warring tribes fighting over dwindling resources, where consciousness contracted into survival mode and stayed there for generations. In that timeline, humanity survived, technically, but diminished, reduced to small scattered populations living in the ruins of the old world. The dream of spacefaring civilization and cosmic connection lost, perhaps forever. Both timelines were still possible. Both existed as potential futures, quantum possibilities waiting to collapse into actuality based on the accumulated choices of billions of humans making decisions every day about how to think, how to act. The beings communicated one final message: we cannot choose for you. We can only show you what is possible and remind you of what you are. The power to transform has always been within you. The choice has always been yours. We are simply witnesses, mirrors, reminders. Your future depends on what you do with what you know. When I came out of that final vision, I was weeping not from sadness, but from the overwhelming beauty and tragedy of it all. The potential was so magnificent, so breathtaking, so worthy of every effort. And the possibility of failure was so heartbreaking, so unnecessary, so preventable. If only we could wake up enough to see what we were about to lose. I understood my role then with absolute clarity. I wasn't meant to save the world. I couldn't. No one person could. But I was meant to be one voice among millions, sharing what I'd seen, living in alignment with what I'd learned, adding my light to the growing network of conscious humans working toward the positive timeline. Success wasn't guaranteed. Failure remained entirely possible. The outcome genuinely depended on choices that hadn't been made yet, actions that hadn't been taken yet, courage that hadn't been summoned yet. But the possibility of success made the effort worthwhile. The vision of what we could become made the struggle meaningful, and the knowledge that I wasn't alone, that millions of others had been contacted, awakened, entrusted with similar visions and similar responsibility, made the burden bearable. Months have passed since that final vision, and yet I still feel them, not in the sky, not in machines, but deep within me, a constant presence that has become as natural as breathing. Every night when the world grows quiet, I hear that hum, faint but persistent, reminding me that what I've experienced is real, that the connection remains, that I'm still part of something far larger than my individual life. When I close my eyes, I see the light again. Not the light that first took me, but the one they showed me, the golden threads connecting everything and everyone, the network of consciousness that underlies physical reality, the web of awareness that includes all life on Earth and extends outward to encompass the cosmos itself. I realize now that the beings were never visitors in the sense I originally believed. They didn't come from somewhere else to somewhere here, because ultimately there is no else and no here. There is only consciousness expressing itself in infinite forms across infinite dimensions of existence. They are mirrors reflecting what humanity is capable of becoming, what we might achieve if we awaken to our own potential, if we remember what we've forgotten, if we reclaim abilities that were always ours but which we've suppressed through centuries of disconnection from nature, from each other, from the earth, from the cosmos. They showed me futures, but none were fixed or certain. They were paths of devastation, yes, timelines where human civilization collapses, where the earth suffers tremendous trauma, where consciousness contracts into darkness and stays there for ages. These possibilities are real, probable, even if current trends continue. But there were also paths of creation, evolution, transcendence timelines, where humanity wakes up, where we learn to work with Earth rather than against it, where we develop technologies based on consciousness rather than combustion, where we take our place in the cosmic community as mature, responsible, awakened beings. And the difference between these divergent futures, the difference between extinction and transformation, between collapse and evolution, lies entirely in us, in our choices, in our ability to feel what others feel, to see what needs to be seen, to act from awareness rather than from fear, to choose empathy over indifference, understanding over ignorance, connection over separation. The universe itself is alive, I now understand, not metaphorically, but literally. Consciousness is the fundamental substrate of reality, more primary than matter or energy, and Earth is a focal point of that consciousness, a living being with its own awareness, its own intentions, its own evolutionary trajectory. What happens here matters. It echoes outward, affecting systems and beings we can't even imagine. Earth is not isolated. It's embedded in a vast network of conscious worlds, all connected, all influencing each other through dimensions of reality that transcend physical space. The mark on my arm has become something more than a reminder now. It's a living interface. I've learned to consciously activate it through meditation and intention. When I do, information flows not in words or images exactly, but as direct knowing, pure understanding that bypasses language and thought. I receive guidance about which actions to take, which paths to follow, how to contribute most effectively to the positive timeline. Other contactees report similar experiences with their marks. We've discovered that when we're in physical proximity, the marks resonate with each other, creating interference patterns that amplify the connection to the beings and to the larger network of consciousness. We've experimented with gathering in groups, all of us focusing our intention together, and the effects are remarkable. Synchronicities multiply, manifestations accelerate. The boundary between intention and reality becomes paper thin. It's as if collective focused consciousness has power that individual consciousness doesn't, or rather, that it amplifies individual power exponentially. This, I realize, is the key to navigating the choice point successfully. Individual awakening matters, but collective awakening is what will tip the scale. The beings have been seeding consciousness throughout humanity, creating nodes of awareness that can network together, forming a kind of planetary nervous system, a neural net of awakened humans coordinating consciously toward shared goals. We're becoming what the beings always were, a collective intelligence that maintains individual identity while participating in group consciousness. Not a hive mind where individuality is lost, but a network mind where individuality is enhanced through connection. The changes in the world are accelerating now, becoming impossible to ignore. Every week brings new revelations, scientists discovering new principles of physics that read like mysticism, governments releasing previously classified information about UFO encounters, spiritual teachers from different traditions discovering common ground, young people rejecting the old paradigms en masse and building new systems based on cooperation and sustainability. The old world is dying, not destroyed, but transcended, outgrown. The structures and systems that have governed human civilization for centuries are cracking, crumbling, revealing themselves as inadequate for the challenges we now face. And in the cracks, new growth emerges. Communities forming around regenerative agriculture, renewable energy, alternative economics, technologies appearing that were suppressed for decades suddenly finding their way into the world. Healing modalities that were dismissed as pseudoscience being validated by research. Ancient wisdom being recognized as scientifically accurate. It's messy, chaotic, painful. The old doesn't release its grip easily, and there are powerful interests invested in maintaining the status quo. But the momentum has shifted. The light is spreading faster than the darkness can contain it. The collective consciousness is rising, and no amount of suppression can stop it now. I watch this transformation with awe and gratitude and occasional terror. The outcome still isn't certain. The shadow timeline remains possible, perhaps even probable based on certain metrics. But the positive timeline is gaining strength, accumulating probability, drawing more people into its field every day. So here is what I offer to you, whoever you are, wherever you are, whenever you're hearing this message. If you felt something while watching this video, a resonance, a recognition, a sense that what I'm describing is true, even though it sounds impossible, that feeling is significant. That is your own awareness awakening, your own consciousness recognizing itself in the mirror I'm holding up. You don't need to believe everything I've said. You don't need to accept it all at face value. But I invite you to remain open, to stay curious, to notice what happens in your life after hearing this story. If you want to continue exploring these ideas, if you want to join this community of seekers and experiencers, I invite you to subscribe to this channel. Every subscription adds energy to the network, helps the algorithm spread these messages to more people who need them, contributes to the collective awakening that's happening worldwide. If this video moved you, if it made your heart race or your mind expand or your eyes tear up, leave a like, not for my ego, but as a vote for the positive timeline, as an energetic signature saying, yes, this matters, this is real, I'm part of this. And if you know someone who needs to hear this message, someone who's been having strange experiences they can't explain, someone who's questioning consensus reality, someone who's ready to wake up, share this video with them. Be the node in the network that connects them to other nodes. expanding the web of awareness, one person at a time. Every interaction matters. Every choice counts. Every person who wakes up makes it easier for the next person to wake up, creates more light in the network, shifts the probability toward the positive timeline. Keep your eyes on the sky, yes, but more importantly, keep your awareness in your heart. The beings are always there, always watching, always available to those who learn how to connect. But they won't force contact, won't override your free will, won't intervene unless invited. They respect our sovereignty, absolutely, even when we're making choices that lead to suffering.